Good evening and a very warm welcome to Radio and Television Tonga News Package for the hour. Making headlines, Revenue and Customs CEO predicts that there will be a 2.5% increase in Tonga's economy for this financial year despite the last fiscal year's negative 2.7% loss. Prime Minister Nuku'alofa calls for urgent action to overcome the severe economic impacts and other issues during the General Assembly of the United Nations in New York. And His Royal Highness Crown Prince Nuku'alofa to commission the new Tonga Broadcasting Commission building tomorrow. Now, I'm Wafana Dobola with the stories in detail. Despite Tonga facing many difficulties, such as the spread of COVID-19 and the eruption of the Hungahapai volcano, the Ministry of Revenue and Customs is still able to collect taxes from the public. The CEO for Revenue and Customs, Kelemete Vahe, said during one of the ministry's radio and television program that Tonga's economy was affected by these disasters, as well as the border closure, which saw the large sectors such as tourism bear the brunt of these impacts. In the last financial year, the economy decreased by negative 2.7% due to disasters and the border closure, which meant that tourists couldn't visit Tonga. The tourism sector is the largest sector that mostly collects revenue and helps Tonga's economic growth. While Tonga's economy recovers, the CEO of Revenue and Customs, Kelemete Vahe, elaborated on the reasons that our economy will quickly rise in the current financial year and for the future. Firstly, Tonga's economic recovery. Many Crown projects from overseas countries to Tonga will see money go through different sectors that can help with the recovery of our economy. Secondly, we are looking forward to the opening of our border, as many tourists will visit Tonga, and that will be a major source of income for us. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Tourism has confirmed that the first cruise ship to visit Tonga since the border was closed for more than 2 years will arrive next week on the 3rd of October, and the CEO for Revenue and Customs believes that Tonga's economy will be back to normal next year or the following year. As the media have reported that the government is applying consumption tax on petroleum prices and meat products during this difficult time, I want to clarify the truth but not to mislead the public. First of all, petroleum prices have decreased, and the two main reasons for it are that petroleum prices worldwide is decreased. Secondly, Tonga's currency is also increasing. If Tonga's currency was not increasing, then petroleum prices would still increase too. So the government is subsidizing 20 seniti from every litre of petroleum. If the government didn't subsidize 20 seniti, petroleum prices would still increase. However, he adds that Tonga's competent authority is reviewing whether the government can still subsidize 20 seniti per every litre of petroleum on the 17th of October, or should consumption tax be applied. The Honourable Prime Minister Nuku'alofa, during the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly, called for urgent actions to overcome the severe economic, financial and social impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as accelerate action on climate change, ocean health, energy transformation and sustainable use of natural resources, among others. Mark Ake takes up that story.
During the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly, the Prime Minister, Honorable Nuku'alofa, called for a peaceful resolution of the conflict in Ukraine, in which he says despite Tonga being far away from the conflict, its people feel its ripple effects through higher costs of fuel, food and basic supplies. He mentioned that inflation is in the double digits and Tonga has not experienced this in decades. He also warned that the existential threats from climate change, pandemics and the conflict have increased, and the international community must keep its promises to small island developing states. Meanwhile, he talked about the events of January, in which he says that all Tongans will forever recall the eruptions, as the explosion was of an intensity so great that some research compares it to the impact of a nuclear explosion. He adds that the ensuing tsunami devastated Tonga's economy and several islands were completely and severely destroyed, and people were displaced and then evacuated to neighboring islands. The volcanic eruption and tsunami cut access to basics for people and cut its communications, a lifeline for an island nation. The widespread socio-economic damage and loss of lives is estimated by the World Bank at 36.4% of Tonga's GDP. In this context, he reiterated his commitment to reduce the risk and the harmful effects of natural disasters, particularly through risk-informed development efforts and enhancing disaster preparedness for effective response. He highlighted that Tonga has one of the world's highest rates of NCDs, in which he noted that cardiovascular disease, cancers, diabetes, and chronic respiratory diseases account for approximately 80% of deaths in Tonga. In that regard, he drew attention to his government's goal of reducing such deaths by 1/3 by the year 2030. Ho'okau Meliku also talked about the adverse impacts of climate change that make Tonga the third most vulnerable country in the world. He stressed spotlighting threats to its country's territorial integrity, land, water, health, infrastructure, food security, biological diversity, livelihoods, and ecosystems. And so he called for this issue to be a permanent item on the Security Council's agenda.
His Royal Highness Crown Prince Tupotoa Ulukalala is expected to commission the new building of the Tonga Broadcasting Commission in Fasimoeafi tomorrow morning.
This commission of the new Tonga Broadcasting Commission facility will allow the Crown Prince, His Royal Highness Tupotoa Ulukalala, to launch the completion of the corporate project of the Tongan and Japanese government's National Early Warning System, or NEWS. The project included the construction of the Tonga Broadcasting Commission facility and installing radio systems along with the early warning system equipment. It also includes the installation of a new antenna pole for the AM radio station along with a transmitter in Popua. As such, the broadcasting of the AM station will be much better, especially when transmitting to the outer islands all the way to the two Niuas. This news project is estimated to be worth over 1 million pa'anga. The commissioning ceremony will be broadcasted live through Radio and Television Tonga and also live streaming at approximately 10 a.m. tomorrow.
And the government primary schools of Nomuka, Fonoi and Tongua were delighted to receive water tanks donated by the Lions Club in New Zealand this month. This comes at a time when the islands faces drought and water shortages. Mark Ake again with the detail.
The Lions Club in New Zealand is working together with the Tonga Red Cross Society in providing these water tanks after the events of January 15th. The club was able to work with its branches around the globe, including a substantial grant from the Lions Club's International Foundation in Chicago, raising funds to support the GPS schools in the islands that face drinking water deficiency. The project is worth 50,000 pa'anga and included 4 5,000-liter water tanks for GPS Nomuka, 3 5,000-liter tanks for GPS Tongua, and 2 5,000-liter water tanks for GPS Fonoi. All schools also received guttering. The Lions Club hoped that students in these GPS schools will have access to safe and clean drinking water through the new water tanks. The Lions Club are currently working on other support to the affected islands in Ha'apai after the tsunami and volcanic eruption in January.
Online safety is a major concern in Tonga, especially when talking about misuse of social media, such as the spread of misinformation, online abuse, cyberbullying, fraud, and fake pages. A non-government organization, Tonga Women in ICT, is committed and aimed at increasing awareness on these issues, and they have signed a memorandum of understanding with the government that will enable them to carry out public awareness on cybercrime throughout the country. And the Tonga Women in ICT signed the Memorandum of Understanding with the MEDEC CEO, Paula Ma'o, on behalf of the Tonga Computer Emergency Response Team. The president of the Tonga Women in ICT, Selu Kauwaka, told the media that with online safety a major concern in Tonga, they considered that one of the best ways to help is to increase awareness. She says that while Tonga CERT handles the issue of cybercrime, the organization proposed a plan to the Ministry of MEDEC to assist them raise awareness directly to villages and schools. One of the biggest issues in Tonga is the misuse of social media with misinformation, online abuse, cyberbullying, fraud and fake pages. She said that MOU will enable the Tonga Women in ICT to act hand-in-hand with Tonga CERT in delivering awareness on cybercrime and cyber safety to the community, youths and students in schools. While the Tonga Women in ICT is supporting Tonga CERT, this will also be an opportunity for the group members to build their own capacities, with members have been trained to be GetSafe Online ambassadors. The Honourable Prime Minister Nuku'alofa and His Excellency David Kapua, President of the Republic of Marshall Islands, signed the joint communique for the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries in New York. Prime Minister Nuku'alofa also held a bilateral meeting with the President of the Republic of Latvia, His Excellency Mr. Ivils Levitis, on a possible joint cooperation program. Tonga established diplomatic relations with the Republic of Latvia in 2020. Meanwhile, the Honourable Minister for Foreign Affairs and Tourism, Fikita Muiloa Utoikamanu, also had a first opportunity for a bilateral meeting with the Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Croatia since the establishment of the two countries' diplomatic relations in 2020. And that wraps up this evening's news package. But before we part, here's one final look at today's top stories. Revenue and Customs CEO predicts that there will be a 2.5% increase in Tonga's economy for this financial year despite the last fiscal year's negative 2.7% loss. Prime Minister Nuku'alofa calls for urgent action to overcome the severe economic impacts and other issues during the General Assembly of the United Nations in New York. And His Royal Highness Crown Prince Tupouto'a Ulukalala to commission the new Tonga Broadcasting Commission building tomorrow. And that's it for tonight. Thank you for your company. I'm Vaifanadu Paula. Good evening.